Hey, I'm John. Welcome to the Last Tuesday Show. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what's the Last Tuesday Show? Well, a few weeks ago I decided to switch from doing 2 videos a week to 1 video. And if I wouldn't have held up these fingers, you wouldn't have understood the concept. Anyway, I decided to go from 2 videos to 1 video, which takes a lot of pressure off of me because doing 2 videos a week was getting really difficult. But it also means that my videos have to be more focused on the models themselves, and I don't have as much leeway to do things like the deep thoughts videos and the shop talk and some of the other things that I liked doing before. Then I got to thinking about it. You know, if I did a once a month kind of variety modeling show maybe, I thought, hey, I could get some of those things in. I could put in a deep thought. I could put in a demonstration of something. I could talk about products or new models that I'm excited about, or maybe some of the projects that I'm working on. Maybe even put in a plug or 2 for Patreon and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, well, when can I do it? And for some reason, the last Tuesday of the month came up. And then I thought, well, I need a name for this thing. What am I going to call it? Well, I couldn't think of a good name, so I just started naming the folders on my computer The Last Tuesday Show. And I really haven't come up with a better name since then. So, The Last Tuesday Show it is. Now, one of the things that makes a show big time legit is when they have sponsors. And guess what? I got me a sponsor. And I think you're really going to like it.
Hey, what you got there? Wow, that's pretty cool. So why do you look so down? Are you worried you won't get enough of that sweet comment and critique action? Why not try the Rivet Counter 3000 app? It's super easy. Just download it, configure it, and then scan your model in and upload it right to the internet. Rivet Counter 3000 then sends your images in glorious high-res 3D to hundreds of scale modeling social media groups, forums, and dozens of noted experts for critique. Within minutes, you get immediate feedback for all of the many, many things which you've done wrong. Download it today. Rivet Counter 3000. Squeezing all the fun out of modeling we can.
I spare no expense in production values, do I? Okay, to get started, one of the things that I wanted to do a brief demonstration on was something that every now and then people ask me about. You know, they'll say, what is this? So here's a look at wet sanding.
Whenever you're sanding seams, I think one of the best ways to do that is through a process called wet sanding. Now, all wet sanding is when you take your sanding stick, dip it in some water, and then sand it down. That process of adding water to the mix will do several things for you. One, it's going to clean up all that dust that flies around. You're not going to get dust. You're going to get clumps of it that you're going to be able to easily wipe off. So it makes a little bit less of a mess. Second thing it does is it keeps the sanding process from getting too hot. Sometimes when you're sanding, the plastic can heat up, the sanding stick can heat up, and they don't interact well together. So keeping it cool helps make a better sanding experience, I guess you'd say. And then finally, the sanding process itself, when it's wet, it picks up the material you're sanding, and that actually becomes part of the grit that's sanding it. And what I've found is when you use wet sanding, you're able to use a much finer grain of sanding stick and get as much done as you would with a more harsh grain of sanding stick. For example, I've got this 400 grit. Now, if I were dry sanding this, it might be faster to go in with, say, a 320 or even a 240, but that's much harsher. This is going to get it done just about as fast, and it's going to do less damage to the surface of the model. Additionally, if you do have to drop down into a 240 or a 320 or something like that, or even down to a 180, when you're wet sanding, they do much less damage to the surface of the model than they would if you use them dry. And the process is really easy. You literally just dip the sanding stick in water. Now this is my paint water cleaning cup here, and sometimes I don't even bother getting clean water because it doesn't matter if it leaves a stain. And then I just go in and I begin sanding like this. Now I prefer circular motions because they tend to leave less marks on the model. When you do just a back and forth sawing motion, you're going to get some of that grain look to it, and you have to sand even harder to get rid of that. But as you can see, it's just slowly removing that, and I can wipe away, and it's not doing very much damage at all to the surface. It's going to give a much smoother finish, a much better look, and you won't have to do near as much cleanup work. I've found that when I'm using, for example, this 400 grit sanding stick, that when I'm finished with the sanding, it may be good enough to put primer over and not even have to go down to 600 or 800. Sometimes a single pass with this type of sanding stick using wet sanding is enough to get it where I want it. And you see it's picked up a lot of that Mr. Surfacer from it, but I'm just doing gentle circular sanding, and I just keep cleaning it until I get it down to the point that I want. And I just rub my thumb over it, and when I don't feel any of that seam, I know it's done. And I can leave that on here because this is a Maschinen Krieger kit and I'm going to be texturing this. I don't have to get that down to an absolute smooth finish where there's no trace of the sanding, the filler left. If this were another model, say a Gunpla, where you're wanting a really smooth finish, you would want to keep it going right down until you have just the barest minimum of the seam left. But try wet sanding the next time you're having to do sanding. It'll give you much better results and won't leave as many marks on your model.
Now, I'll admit wet sanding is a fairly basic technique, but like I said, I get questions about it often enough that I thought it was worth covering. Something I forgot to note in the talking hands part was that you can use wet sanding with metal files also. I do that all the time, and the method is the same. You simply dip it in your water, sand on your model, and then clean it off, and it really makes metal files shine. It really helps them just like it does with your sanding sticks. So if you haven't given that a try, give it a shot. My original intent for this first episode was to do a deep thoughts section about right now. However, when I got into what's going to come next, the interview, it actually went longer than I had planned, but it was such a fun interview and it was so good. And even when I've been editing it, going back, trying to cut down on the time a little bit, there's not anything I want to cut out. It's good stuff. And not because of me, but because of the interviewee. So I've decided to forego the deep thought for this month, and I'll do it on the next Last Tuesday show. And I want to get right to this month's interview. The interview this month is going to be with Lincoln Wright from Paint on Plastic. Many of you may have heard of him, a lot of you may have not. He's best known for his work with the Maschinen Krieger franchise. He worked for many years as a studio artist, but I'll let him tell you about all of that stuff in the interview. But what you'll find with Linc, and this is why I absolutely wanted him to be the first interview because I knew it would be gold, is because you simply have to ask a question and he just goes. And it's funny and it's insightful and it shows his experience and his depth of knowledge and his love for the hobby and his love for what he does and his love for teaching. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. I know when we did this a couple of weeks back, when we did the actual interview, I hated for it to end. I mean, it got to the point where I realized I'm just going to have to draw this to a close, not because I want to, but just for the sake of time, because I think we could have kept going for quite a while. But watch this interview. If you already know Linc, you get it immediately. And if you don't know Linc, please listen to this and see what a great guy he is and a spectacular modeler. All right, well, thank you for joining me today. I have a very special guest, Lincoln Wright from Paint on Plastic. Thank you very much for joining us today, Lincoln.
I'm always happy to come on TV and accept an award, John.
Yes, yes, we have an award. What it is, I don't know. All right.
Okay. The award, John, is the only guy who said yes. Here's your award.
Yes.
Gosh, okay, the 1 minute version. Yeah, my name's Lincoln Wright. So I'm Aussie. I grew up for a very long time in Japan. So now I'm back in Australia, and I don't know how to live as an adult because this is not technically adulting, is it? I worked. I'm working, so it's continued on. I've been able to get back in the good graces of my Japanese overlords by being a productive gaijin outside of Japan. Woo! So I worked in professional studios there for sci-fi properties as a creative. I used to say just studio modeler, but over the couple of years that I've remembered what I do, I mean, that happens, right? I make the models. But I was involved in a lot of different aspects, the graphic arts, just writing for writing for properties, coming up with ideas and concepts for shoots. So I'm thinking, maybe can I call that a creative / donkey?
Yeah.
Things like that. And that continues on now. I'm now working remotely for them. And in no small way, I feel really bad to admit this, but in no small way, the crisis has helped or perhaps accelerated that because they're all remote working too. So when we didn't have chats like this, they're like, that Linc guy is still useful and he seems to sell overseas. So, let's use that donkey again. I don't know if that was a good intro, but so that's what I do.
Great intro. That's a great intro.
I do sci-fi stuff. My life is sci-fi. Love the sci-fi.
To the takeaway, Linc, sci-fi, donkey. So that's so you're working in Japan for all those years. You were there what, like 25 years or something?
Quarter of a century. I would have had less if I had killed someone.
Yeah. So you'd be out of prison by now. So
I hadn't dug enough ditches.
Yeah. So you leave Japan, you come to Australia, you're trying to go it on your own. Did you have kind of a moment where you're kind of like Han and Chewie when they're flying back to the Death Star to get back in on the battle and they look at each other and go, why are we doing this again? Did you have a moment like that?
So my lovely wife is from Tokyo, Tomoe. I was scared to bring it up because the first maybe 6 months was just, because it was just so different. And the full weight of what I didn't know, and it's all me here because, I look like this, I got the Aussie passport, and, I had to start making jokes about it and saying, look, the wheels on your side of the plane actually touch down first. Boy, you're supposed to know this, not me. She's asking me stuff about, everything, all of the intricacies of life that I experienced in, adult life that I experienced with her in Japan. I was like, you were there with me. You remember when I learned these things first time around? I have no idea how it works here. Plus, the bounce off the bottom, I don't mind. I don't mind admitting that. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
No one, very few people knew me. Nobody knew me in Australia. And just work-wise, it felt like a complete zero start. And, I can look back now and it's not as cringy, but, and we do laugh about it now. So it's kind of multiple Chewie Han moments.
Yeah.
And I'm Chewie going, whoa! That's, if we wrote that out, it would be the swear word symbol.
Yeah.
Whoa, what was I thinking? But now, Tomoe every now and then will say to me, I'm so happy we did this.
That's good.
And I said, that of course you do, because I'm still doing all the heavy lifting. No, no, 50 days.
And 3 days later, you were just about to be able to see out of that swollen eye, right?
And it's been quite the, you know, I'm reticent, hesitant to admit, but it has been the struggle of my life. It really has. Wow. Yeah, but it was meant to be. I have never learned so much in such a short period of time. That was part and parcel with it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do what I do now if I hadn't have learnt those lessons, and I could not have learnt them had I stayed in Japan. That's important to think of too.
Experience teaches wisdom, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was in a bubble there. I'm not sure if this is appropriate for the show, but that was the big thing. I was in a bubble there, only talking to people kind of this way, you know, people who knew more than me,
Yeah.
which was fantastic. But I was not learning anything from. It's wrong to say I wasn't learning things from the other end. Let's look at it on timeline then maybe. But for people newer to the hobby, I did not have as much access or exposure to them. YouTube exposure. Oh, that's fun. But so yeah, I could not have learnt that had I not done what we've done. So that's been awesome. That has helped me to become a complete creative, I think, because I'm more in touch with you know, everyone. Aspects of
that picture. At what point were you going along and you got to a point where you said, you know, I think this is going to work out? Was there like a trigger moment that you said, yeah, this is working out?
Gosh, that's really hard, John, because it really has been minute incremental steps. And it was just, I think it's 2 days ago. We're 4 years in Australia now. So,
wow.
And so the paint on plastic thing came in, you know, a couple of months after coming back, think, okay, what am I going to do now? That sinking feeling. But, you know, no, like, I don't feel that I've even made it yet. I mean, I mean, there's no award, right? So again, incremental steps. It will probably look from the outside. It may have, I don't know. Maybe it looked easy. Maybe it looked quick. But no, it's just been day upon day of you know, I don't want to keep the word struggle, but it's.
No, I get what you're saying. Sometimes you can only look back and see. You can't look now and assess it as well as you can in looking back and going, oh yeah, I'm doing better now than I was then. But next year, this time, you'll say I'm doing better next year than I was this year. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
Have been a couple of recent milestones when I go back through my notes and the kind of goals I was setting from 2016 and then progressively each year. The first ones seemed quite cute in their limited scope and quite naive also, because I clearly just didn't know as much about things back then. You know, it's almost like reading. You know, it's only 4 years ago, three and a half years ago. But yeah, that's been the big thing. It's how much I've had to learn to earn. I've had to learn so much to be able to get to this stage of having slightly better opportunities.
All right. Well, let's talk about some modeling stuff. Talk about some techniques that you maybe struggle with or wish you were better at, because I know a lot of guys will look at the work you do, the work that professional content creators do, and go, okay, these guys, it's just easy for them. But when I've talked with you privately and other guys privately, there's always this, there's something I wish I could do better. There's always something I could learn. So what are some things that you feel like you wish you could do better, that you struggle with?
Nah, I'm really good at everything.
That's what I was thinking when it came to you.
I'm kidding. I take a lot of inspiration. I want to be very clear that despite having, is it despite though? So I've got a nice title in Japan. You know, I'm like the youngest and the first overseas born to be called a sensei, right? Which is in Japan, it's a big deal. I know for people overseas, it might just sound very. I don't know actually how it sounds. it's not about being the best. Yokoyama-san, the Maschinen Krieger property creator, and Max, they've been my biggest and closest mentors for many years now. They would continuously, because I basically grew up under their tutelage.
Yeah.
Because I was young, especially mentally. As a foreigner in Japan, you do live a kind of bubble at times. You're not as quiet because you don't have a lot of peer group pressure.
Yeah.
So your adult development is maybe a little bit slower. So they would constantly chide me about, look, it's not about being the best. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not about who is better. There's not even a comparison thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you provide.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you're on this side, this has been another challenge to explain to people, is the difference between, so they call it, there's Gyokai and Okyakusan, and Gyokai is the industry, the vendor side of things. Okyakusan just means customer.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, if you watch YouTube, there's a lot of steps.
Yeah.
There's the gunpla snappers, and then there's the guys who paint them. And once you paint them, you're pro. And then you go up through the ranks, and it's almost like karate. There's a bunch of different belts to achieve, right? But
I never thought about that. Yeah.
yeah, no, it just popped into my mind now. How there's so many slightly different, levels until you get to the top. And then also there's the people who are both technically good and good on YouTube, and then the ones who are separately really good but don't do YouTube or only do YouTube and decent technical skills. There's quite a lot of delineation from the West. So it can seem complex, but in Japan, at least from these guys' point of view, there's customer and industry, maker and customer. That's all there is. And as a maker, your life exists to provide for the customer. That's all there is. So in terms of techniques, I'm sorry, I'm bringing it back. It is connected.
That's
I make sure that I'm developing skills and techniques that I think will be useful to customers. That's why I don't do a lot of figure work, because there's other people out there who provide a better value option for figures. If I do figures, I keep them very, very simple, because that's well within my comfort range. And that is valuable to customers. But if you need to see high spec stuff, there's people who specialize in that, and they're much better to follow for that one. So I'll occasionally get negative feedback on this. He's always doing this. I've always got voices. I've got voices for all the kinds of haters. It's fun. All the same stuff. This is the same one I saw him do 10 years ago. Like, thank you for watching me for 10 years. I can't buy that level of super fandom. Thank you.
You validated me.
Yeah, just stop hanging around outside my bathroom at night. But otherwise, thank you. But yeah, so I follow a lot of other creators, and I get I steal a great deal of inspiration and homage them, of course. So I don't ever feel I would say that I actually have quite a scientific approach in many ways. Which probably goes counter to my image of being arty, right? That's why I'm wearing the what do you call it in America? I know my Canadian friends call it a toque. We call it a beanie.
Yeah. Watch cap, beanie, knit cap.
See, but you have it all.
To really be completely cool, you need to pull it slightly down over one eye.
Okay, which eye should I go for?
Depends on your hemisphere. I think it's left eye in the southern hemisphere.
I just look like there's a little bit more wrong with me than normal. Okay. But the reason I'm doing it, it's quite cold here this morning. We are because we're under the earth. It's quite cold here.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting perspective that you talk about providing value. But I've heard you talk about that before. That providing value is the
Maschinen Krieger, the dark side of sci-fi.
That's funny. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get back on a modeling track.
Okay. So techniques. I go through a phase of focusing on things that appeal to me.
Yeah. Okay.
If you really look at my work and what's coming out recently, you'll see that I'll go between phases. So I'm quite enamored with the European fantasy look again. So that one was expressed quite a bit in the finish of the yellow thing.
Yeah, the Orc Flyer.
That's it. The Westbound Blaster Jet. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
And previous to that was the White Knight from Maschinen Krieger. That was very much inspired. So that one's a mashup of NASA-inspired sci-fi, together with recent things I'd seen at SpaceX, but also because that's more of the 1980s Maschinen Krieger space look. But I got in a bit of trouble for it too. They said, no, you're taking it too far, but now it's okay.
Really?
Well, I mean, when you do the studio stuff, it's their property, so they call the shots. I have no issue with that. That's probably a big thing. That might be interesting for people to hear about at some stage. Is Gunpire's freedom, Maschinen Krieger's freedom. Everything's freedom.
Unless you're in the studio.
For customers, correct.
Yeah.
That's a customer-facing thing. But if you work on the Kyokai, the industry side, however, no, that's a property. And you've got to fit your work within that so that it looks correct, because there's many people who expect it to look that way. Every now and then I'll get some guy on Facebook who, it looks like all the other ones. Yes, they're mine too. It's supposed to.
Yeah. And there's a reason for that.
The fingerprints are the same. The macro photography of old models reveals all the sins.
Yeah.
But, so that one was a mashup. It was very nostalgic. It's a new model. I wanted to give it the old Maschinen Krieger look, but also because I was watching SpaceX, I took that NASA/SpaceX mashup a little bit further. So more than techniques, and I'm going to length to explain this because I'd suggested to other modelers, if this rings a little bell for you, if you go, I like the sound of that, definitely try it. I personally am not so technique focused because of it's not what the finish is. I mean, technically we could say a finish is the sum of its technical parts, but no, I feel as a big deal, as John said. Am I allowed to say that? No, but I personally that a theme needs to be bigger than the sum of all of the technical parts.
Yeah, I agree.
I can leave now.
Yeah, we're in agreement. We're in agreement. We're talking about this, as because obviously you started with one model and you've grown over the years as a modeler, as an artist. Can you, in looking back over all of those that you built, can you think of any one particular moment, any particular model, any particular thing that you did it, and when you got done, you stepped back and thought, wow, I just really went somewhere beyond where I've been with that? What would that look like? How did that feel?
So I've got two answers for that one. The first one is I honestly feel a little bit like that after every single finish. I'm finishing models every single time. My wife will corroborate this alibi. Every time, I'll come out and go, man, that's great. Look at this. Fly it around a bit. I mean, for me to choose this as my life, of course, I'm not quite right. Right? So, that's that. And I really do. There's some of them I feel, once I've finished them, some of them are just okay. But most of them, especially now, the timing's changed a little bit. When I was, did you see the movies? No, The Toys That Made Us, John?
Yeah, I think I have.
Right, I thought you might. I think all of your viewers will have watched it too. Do you remember My Little Pony? That was one of my favorites, right? They talk about feed the beast.
Yeah.
Almost reminded me about this, like just yesterday, I think, or the day before. She said, yeah, it's different to your feed the beast work. And I went, oh my that's it. Because, she's deep in nerdville now because of being, we've been together a long time as well. So
Yeah.
there's quite a few models that I'm not.
She blew your mind, huh?
I was like, oh my God, that's exactly it. See, the first 3 years of YouTube were feed the beast for me. So it's not good work. Some of them are all right. They're decent. A couple might squeak in as decent enough, but I'm trying those arbitrary weekly targets and things like that for scale modeling, especially if you want to do it in a detailed way, will ruin your work. Or you need to do a million steps. So that anyway, there's a lot to it, and it's really hard. That was my feed the beast moment.
Yeah.
But career-wise, gosh, there's probably two models that helped other people and opened doors for me. I think that might be more interesting answer.
Go for it.
One would be there was and they're both Maschinen Krieger, because getting involved with that property, that one was really a game changer for me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things seem to click. But that's I need time to actually think about that. That's something I should write in a book that's coming out next year.
Yeah, which we are going to talk about.
Oh no, that's another one. So there was a fireball stopgap, and I happened. It was maybe the second Maschinen Krieger model. I copied everything, ruthlessly. I completely followed Koyokama Sensei's book, copied everything. I didn't take ketchup to a French restaurant. I did everything his way. That's one of his lines too. It's funny, right?
That's awesome.
But I tried something different with the groundwork. I did a zenithal thing from the point of view of the camera. I don't know if that kind of makes sense. I know it's not technically zenithal, but I shot it because I thought, okay, you're on the moon. There's no what's the English word for it? Is it dispersion from the air? The light rays hitting the air?
Diffusion.
Right. Gee, my English good. So I imagine there's not going to be any diffusion. I imagine it must be a really harsh delineation between light and dark. So shot it with the airbrush to only light it from one direction. That day, I go to my first Wonder Festival, stumble around by myself, took too long to get in. Everything was sold out. I learned that MAK, it's mathematical equation. MAK equals sold out. Like, oh, okay. So, it was just a line of epic fails because it just took me too long to get in. I didn't know anybody to ask that you need to line up from like 3 a.m., or don't come really quick to get ahead in the line,
Yeah.
But anyway, so I left late, and it just so happened I hear some guy talking quite loudly, not in a angry, about to throw down voice, but quite energetic. And literally the next doorstop to me is this guy standing there, looks very animated, and he's got like a throng, a literal throng. I love that word now. Throng of people standing about, hanging on his every word. And he must have felt the stop and the stare. And he looks at me. And then I'm looking at him. And I felt like I knew him, right? And he looks at me, and I go, "That's you." And then he points back at me with a smile. I go, "You're Koyokama Sensei, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes." Right? So I zoom over, probably made a complete what of myself in front of the throng. I can't remember who they were. They were probably the wonderful people that I then worked with afterwards. But, such a fanboy geeky moment to meet I'd been emulating the work, reading the book, doing all these things, trying to get the stuff, and I meet the guy. I break into Japanese because by that stage I'd already lived there quite some time. So I was already fluent in Japanese. And he invites me to go to the after party. So I travel along I become part of the throng. It was when I showed that model there, there's this really weird thing where he gets like a couple of bites of food, 2 sips of beer, and then all of the rejects from the wedding singers table 12 that I was on. Then we migrate over to him for our pats on the head. Look at what I have made. And he said, very good, very good. Go to the back of the line. And, but I did. I brought that over, and he said, "Wow, the groundwork. I've never seen it done this way before." It wasn't the model; it was the groundwork that took 5 minutes. But that one, I think it helped him to notice that, despite my awful appearance, I was also slightly different from the other people emulating his work. So that was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been part of it. The next one was I won a competition. The last one. After that, you're not allowed to, because if you win and they pick you up, you go to that industry side that we talk about.
Wow.
And that's also why I've had my mates in Australia have hounded me to join competitions like the Gunpla Builders World Cup that we hold here. And I know they want to do it in a good way. They mean well. I'm not allowed to, but they also hadn't heard the story, what position I developed in Japan. And there's lots of reasons, but that's why I don't compete, because it's technically goes wrong. But that model, that was one of the ones, because and one of the things I don't tell people about, it's not fair at all that I won, because your Kama-san coached me on it.
Oh, wow.
I think I can tell that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, up until now, I've been saying it's all me.
Yeah.
But not really, because it was so big, and I developed a bit of a friendship with him. So this was 2 years after we met, and it helped that we didn't live far from one another. I mean, far. It'd take me about an hour to get to his place.
Yeah.
Compared to now, it's quite short. Except on Zoom. The scale. It was a lunar diver in 1/20th scale. I mean, I don't think you can even see. What's that? It's like about 3 feet long. 2 feet, maybe. It's huge, right?
Imagine.
Ridiculously big. I was completely, because I'd come from doing little airfix kits, Warhammer, and then the little Maschinen Krieger suits, but they're not that big either, are we? So this thing suddenly this big. How do I do it? And he says, "Oh, easy." I didn't have an airbrush, or no, it was too big for airbrushing. No, I did have an airbrush. He said, "Use cans, which is faster, because it's like he says, paint it like a prop. Use cans and larger brushes. Just scale the brushes up. Keep it to the same resolution of finish as you would a small one." And that changed my world, just the thinking of that. And I produced that finish, and that's what Max Watanabe was zooming around that competition that year. Obviously, and he's been scouting. That's where he gets most of his staff from, is the Maschinen Krieger property, to work on other stuff. Maschinen Krieger is seen as the most challenging of the properties, the most developed, I guess, competitive. So at those competitions, I didn't know at the time who these people were, but they're the top of all of the genres in Japan competing at that one.
Wow.
Gosh, what would we call it? It's like a behind-the-scenes secret competition, almost. I mean, you have to be very good at something to even kind of not be invited, but have the cojones to show up to it.
It's the creator fight club, right?
Yeah. So the guys on either side of me, one of them was a gentleman named Arakawa-san. He goes by the tag Wild River. He's the guy who's very famous for diorama works. Google him, he said he's really, really good. Bunch of those guys, they were all top of their game. I didn't know. I just thought, wow, these guys are pretty good here. But they were the top gunpla guys, and the airplane guys, the tank guys showing up and doing the versions. That's the one. That one changed it, because when I stood back, it looked good in person, which was very different. Usually, when you go to a model show and the model looked great on your bench, because you got it up like this, you're like, wow, this is the best I've ever done. And then you're putting it down over there on the bench and standing back. The lighting's terrible. Someone's got something twice as big as yours next to it that's dwarfed. And you're just going to, it sucks all the life out of it, the different lighting. And often the bench top is not helpful. There's a bunch of things, isn't there, that at model shows, it never looks like it did in your workshop, does it? Yeah. So that was the first time that you put it at a distance, and because I'd listened, it worked. it looked really, really good. It looked terrible up close. I was crying about it, but on the bench it looked fantastic. So that one was another one, and it changed everything, because it's not only that I did something good. It was more that I listened, took on board instead of resisting, like many people do. So that was a big changer, and that's the one Max. You probably heard this story before. Max says, "Come visit Hobby Japan." I'm like, who are you? What for? Are we drinking? What's going on? Yeah, it's funny fact.
Speaking of Max, and I'm asking this question because this is one of my favorite stories I've ever heard you tell. Is it Verka or is it version KA?
Well,
tell that story.
Okay, pretty short, but just for people listening, because you've instantly had that visceral reaction. I'll call it what I want. Gunpla freedom. Yeah,
that's what I love.
Yes. Okyak-san, customers. Yes, it's whatever you want it to be. John, did you ever watch a show called 30 Rock?
Yes.
I love American television. I do. It's the best, right? British stuff's really funny too, but it's so different. But anyway, 30 Rock. Do you remember Dr. Spaceman? I love Dr. Spaceman character, Dr. Spaceman, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember his line? Oh, no. Medical science. It's whatever we want it to be. So now when I meet people in person, sometimes someone will come up to me in a hobby store and say, I'm still calling it Vercabra. Like, Gundam is whatever we want it to be, much like medical science. Yes. Here, would you like some blues? I just got these from South America. Yeah, I love that show. It was so funny. So, for the record, it's whatever you want to call it. Customer's always right. So fine. But the moment was, we were sitting, Max had taken us out because we're family friends. Max also has a young daughter, and he's known Tabitha from, when she was yay big. Mm-hmm. And, when you're a dad and you've had I don't know, because I've never had a son, well, who's found me yet, but but because I've got a daughter, I understand this too, that, you're happy when you see families that have a little girl, because, you've got lots of fun memories of it yourself. I think that was a bit with Max. So anyway, mm-hmm. So he, on our visit, when I showed up by myself, he only gave me a few minutes. I mean, we hung out for a little bit. He said, next time, you got to bring the family. All right. And it was at a time when I couldn't afford to bring my family. I was basically in Japan because I was a tag-along for a business, mm-hmm. to help them with like biz dev and stuff like that. Oh how I have prostituted myself. No, but it was a start, and it got me back involved with things, and it was good. It was good, and I'm still friends with them. They're wonderful people. So cool. No negative things there. I still do biz dev for them too, which is good. Sorry, I just want to make sure I don't want to sound ungrateful ever. I'm so grateful, happy for the people that have helped me so far. I just can't stop cracking stupid jokes about things, as you know. Yeah, but anyway, so I couldn't afford it at the time, which was really heartbreaking. And I can't tell Max, he's super successful. Mm-hmm. I didn't bring him, I can't afford it yet. It's really hard, Max. I couldn't do that. So, but by the next year, things had grown progressively so that I could. That was actually a really big moment. I could take the family back to visit Japan and the family. I know it probably sounds small, but it's funny how big some of these things can be in your life, right? Especially referencing back when I said it really was a zero start. Things were not good. To have progressed to that was wonderful. So we're sitting there at the dinner, and it's really nice. It's better than anything I can afford, and it's meat. So it's cooked meat. So I was like, oh. And so I asked Max some advice, because he's the one who has been kicking me for years to do more with Gunpla. I'd made mm-hmm. a card for him to paint or do other things. Mm-hmm. He's like, please, I want to see your take on this. Mm-hmm. Basically hired me to copy. Look at his style for the Maschinen Krieger stuff. There's the archive books. You can get them. Look at mm-hmm. the stuff from the first volume to the second volume when I show up. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it was me, but it was totally me. No, he loved it though. He just really liked the look of it.
Mhm.
And it came, and he then developed a really good style that was between Yokoyama-san's and mine, which was really, really good. The three of us then kind of had a really cool thing going. It's great. But I said, okay, I am now ready for the gunplas.
Uh-huh.
Learn me the gunplas, please. Or Maxine said. And he's like, he's looking at me like, oh, I know I got to keep it PG, but he's like, oh man, finally you listened. All right. So I said, okay, I want to do one of these Verkar kits. What would you suggest for me to kick off with the Verkar range? And he's like, what? Come on, actually, no. Calm down. Verkar. The Verkar ones, Don't you know Gumpa? Dude. And I really had that feeling because in my little world, everyone around me is chanting it. Verkar, Verkar, one of us, right? That's how it sounds, right? And you should really do Verkar, Linc. Verkar. And honestly, the first couple of times I heard it, I had no idea what my friends were talking about. You mean Katoki-san's work? Oh yeah, I've seen him. Yeah. So I know the guy more than the Gunpla thing, but I spell it out and I show him a screenshot. This, Verkar, catch up. And he looks at it and just cracks up and then spells it out to me like I'm 3. Oh, version KA. Whether Max is correct or not, it's. Am I allowed to say it's mute because of internet?
Mute? Yeah.
No, mute because of internets. Now people don't say it's a moot point; it's a mute point.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Yes, I pacifically understand you, sir.
Specifically.
Yes. But I've been laughing because that's one of the best YouTube videos I've done. People just ripped into me. Oh, it's Verkar, you noob. Well, yeah, okay. It's moot. It's just that if that's what Max calls it, and I'm talking to Max, you say things, and however Max says it, if he calls it dog poo on a stick, that's what it is.
Well, see, I've actually, since I heard you first tell that story, I was at a shop and somebody said, oh, have you ever built one of these Verkar kits? And just straight faced, I said, version KA. And they went, are you sure? And I'm like, I knows people. I knows a guy who knows a guy.
Wish I could be brave. Well, again, that's in person where people have social skills and fear of a beating.
Yeah. You can't get away with that on the internet because nobody has any fear.
Sadly takes away fear of a beating. But I'm making a list and I'm checking it twice. I'm kidding.
That's funny. I love that story. Thank you for indulging me for telling that one more time because I love hearing that. I love hearing that story.
There's various permutations. Why isn't it version Katoki? And the real answer is I don't know, nor do I care. It's whatever they call it, I'll call it. It's
the
name is the least important thing. The design is it contains water slides. Do you say decals or decals?
Either one. In fact, I try to switch it up sometimes in my videos just to be funny.
So. It contains everything you want. They're very cool. That's more important to me than what the name is.
Yeah. So, are you working on anything right now that's kind of a relief valve kind of build? Do you ever have something going on that's just for you? No time.
Oh God, my life is being behind on things. So you know about it. So I'm in the final. I'm supposed to have this book finished in the next 2 months. So
wow.
This is the first time I think this is the first time to mention it. Something you're putting this on YouTube's for public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So I'm doing the next in the AK Interactive FAQ line.
Yeah.
So it's instantly going to ruin and devalue the marketing property because it's quite different. It's written in a different way. So I don't start off with the story. Do you remember The Jerk, Steve Martin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I really want to write it on the first page. I really wanted to write, I was born a poor Spanish child. And it's in no way, I love my Spanish buddies, but it's a Steve Martin thing. I've never been able to fit that movie. Just was such a classic for me as a kid.
Yeah.
And then it's the story they regale us with tales of when they were young. They got the Spitfire kit and the FX kit, and then they went to the model shows. And, okay, I've read that quite a few times now.
Yeah.
And yes, and it's a common story for all of us. It brings us all together. I completely understand and agree with that, but I can't bring myself to write that again. So I'm more writing the reality version about how this is. I'm laughing. I hope I'm also going to do a series of videos to explain myself for the book, rather than have just to help people before they start explaining it at me. You know how it works. Oh, you did this wrong. You didn't do this, and this is. So I'm going to explain the whys of what's in it, how I did it, why. But the main thing is that it's the only one done in a pandemic. Bull.
Yeah.
It's been brutal. I can't get stuff, gosh.
Yeah.
The US, everyone's just slammed by it. And the poor Spanish folks, they were slammed very early. So getting stuff off them has been very difficult. So there's some sections in it that I can't do because I has no product.
Yeah.
I mean, and I had, gosh, this is a bit cheeky, but I had the competing product from the other Spanish dude, but I can't show or use that. So and use it, and I showed the other bottle, which I would never do. That doesn't happen in professional modeling.
Never.
Never. But no. So I tossed all that stuff because Fernando's some guys says, I will supply you with all of the new versions of everything, which was funny in itself because I was working with AK Interactive back in 2010 or 11. So I had all them, then they were replaced, and I didn't know why. And now I'm back to those versions again. But so that one, and it's been really, really hard. You'd also think that you'd have more time because we're in lockdown, but no. The kid going to get the crane in the cement mix, doing the homeschooling of that for I can't remember how long. It was really hard. And she's
keeping you busy.
Yeah, and so she's on this computer. So, it was already meant to be a fast project. I would have had about the total time should be 14 months to produce a book that's supposed to be that thick. When I initially pitched them a book that was going to be about that thick. So it's really, really hard. It's an absolute shambles, fiasco, travesty, to be honest. But that's the professional thing. I'm still going to get it done to the best of my ability.
Well, and I'm looking forward to it because the aircraft version of the FAQ that Daniel did, Daniel, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Zamarbade, that was really influential on my growth as a modeler, and it really helped me out. So I'm looking forward to what you have in your FAQ because it's the kind of thing that I know I'm going to go back to again and again and again. And I think that's going to be really exciting for people because it's hard to find good stuff like that for sci-fi.
Right. So this initially what I thought. God, this flips the thing, doesn't it? This is initially what I thought it could be because sci-fi is big. I think it's bigger than air. Right?
Really?
No, not the book. I mean the scope of possibility.
Yeah.
Because sci-fi is as big as probably all of the other subjects put together, maybe even more. Plus, it contains dioramas, tanks, flyers, aircraft, and mecha.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, it can be huge. So this was some of the challenge because my direction for the book has been You do what you like. So, okay.
And I hadn't thought about that until you just pointed that out, that all the others focus on tanks,
Correct.
on aircraft, or on something else. And you got all of that in sci-fi. So I guess it really must be a challenge to try and pick
Right.
what you want to do, what subject, and what techniques are tied to what subject.
And yeah. So there's the dream list, which I started out with, and then there's what I'll be able to do, and they're quite different. So, but what it means is subsequent publications will be very good, because I've got. I don't want to shoot it down, before it even gets out the door. But it's there's a lot you can't do. There's more that you can't do than you can get into it. Plus,
because of space limitations and things.
Good time and focus. So just I only had the 14 months, which it would have been the shortest of all the FAQs. And this is just one of the things too. It's not their fault, but they don't, and it's why they ask me to do it.
Yeah.
The publishers do not know sci-fi, so there's that. They have an indication, but they don't know. So there's that. So they expect it to be smaller, but the reality is that it probably could be a lot bigger in scope, because each one of them is each genre we could talk about is quite well developed.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we only focused on Japanese ones, I mean, there's Gunpla, Macross, Maschinen Krieger, Evangelion. There's just so many that we could dig into.
Yeah.
We've got Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar. Gosh, loads. Right? Even just Star Wars is huge.
You could do an entire FAQ on that.
Oh my goodness, it would be bigger than a lot of the other books. So, having to make tough choices for that. The tough choices added to that, the unavailability of kits, because of the crisis, people buy kits. So a lot of kits are not available. Lack of time to make them. There's a lot of challenges. But Fernando, bless him, so he's the owner, the publisher. He says it's okay. We do what we can do, and we can always offer an upgrade to it in the future.
Yeah. Volume 2.
Well, the timing has not been ideal, but
it is I can see how that would be a challenge for you, because I know I've heard modelers from Australia talking about the cost of getting things anyway, and so in a pandemic, I can imagine that would be really difficult.
It's been a lot of unavailability, but that's just what it is. So I'm focusing on. In a way, I'm really lucky that I was witness to the first one they did. So our buddy Nick Jimenez, he first one off his own back. I think it was Andrea Publishing that one. Then when he was picked up, hired by AK Interactive, that's when they did. I think the first project he did was FAQ2, and that's when they owned it. I actually have. What is it called? Hey, alrighty, show and smell. So he gave this to me. So our buddy Mig gave this to me like 2011, I think. This is when it had just come out, and I think he'd just been hired by AK Interactive. So this reading his intro of how he's in the airport, got big hair, big belt buckle, jet setting life, visiting all of his buddies and stuff in the beginning, I can't help but laugh at the contrast that it's me here working on my version 9 years later with no hair, no belt, because my pajamas and sweats don't need one. Lockdown, no friends, no modeling events, nothing. So the contrast between them is quite stark. But what I like about this particular one is actually its simplicity. I think some of the others, they're good, but I'm on a little bit of a personal mission to try to simplify modeling for my friends as possible, because there's been a proliferation of so-called techniques
Mm-hmm.
and associated products. And I'm not saying those techniques were invented to sell product. I'm not. But that's one of the things that I liked the simplicity of this one. So in doing my research for planning the book, they sent me, this was my private one, they sent me the new ones, like the AFV #3, I think it is, the diorama one, which is like this big, and Danny's book, which is very, very good. But they're overly complicated to me. I thought, okay, I could follow this kind of format to keep it, again, this is working on the industry side. You don't just get to completely reinvent something, right?
Yeah.
If FAQ, it benefits from that brand, it has to fit with that brand. So, I could do the Evangelion one, the Gunpla one, Star Wars one, Star Trek one, and do them all like Danny did, but that would be a 10-year project.
Yeah,
or I'd need a team. I'd
Yeah.
need a team of people, and I would get specialists for each of them because I can do a fair swing at them, but I'd rather get someone who has a really good look for it, kind of thing, to be value to the customer. But time constraints, etc., that's not going to happen. So I went back to the first one, and I often chant this mantra of less but better.
Yes.
And I looked at it, and I think, I hope my AK Interactive buddies are not unhappy with me. This is one of the best ones, still, because it's more concise. It didn't go too big. I mean, Ruben's version is visually, it's beautiful. It's a masterpiece. But I like the compressed nature of it. So this was technically, I think, this was the only viable choice, was to kind of try to condense it down, give enough examples as a reference piece for people to be able to look it up. What's hairspray chipping? What's this silicon barrier thing that you do? Knock it through them to keep it simple as possible. The other thing I suffer with, John, I'm sorry, I'm on a big line of rants here, but the other thing, see, the other guys, my entire back catalog of good models are in Japan. I can't go get them now. So that one has been tough too. So Danny benefited from being able to photo all of his back catalog of works. I've only got what I've made in Australia. So the stuff I've made is somewhat limited. Or I've got old photographs of old models, which, anyway.
They're older, they're smaller and not as sharp, probably.
Correct. I just don't think it would be right to do that. But on a good note for that, I am actually speaking with Yokoyama-san and Max. I am actually getting all of my back work that they've been holding on to. It was funny how they suddenly knew where everything was. That's for another project, actually. I'm getting all of that back.
Cool.
We won't make it in time for this, but it's another project I'm doing.
That's cool.
For next year. Yeah. So the even if my FAQ is a complete failure, I've got something else to work on.
got a whole nother book lined up and ready to go.
I feel really bad for Fernando, etc. But I mean, it's not like, I think everyone will get it, won't they? I mean, we're all suffering, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're all struggling.
Yeah. Well, there've been so many conversations I've had with other modelers or with people, with vendors or whatever, that everybody's a little more forgiving, a little more, understanding of, well, because of these times. I mean, there's, if it was only happening in one small area, it might be a nuisance and people wouldn't tolerate it as much, but it's worldwide. So, I think I've overheard the saying, we're all in this together, but there is some truth to that. We are all in this together. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But I'll do my best. I'm working on the gallery photos. I'm kind of writing it back to front in some ways too. And they're good. They're good. In the models that are in it are indicative of their genre. So that's, and I've shown a bunch of different kinds of finishes. So I hope There's enough variation in that. There's water-based, there's lacquer-based, there's airbrushed, there's hand-brushed, there's Japanese finish, more Western finish. So I've got quite a few things in there. It's just not a large volume, not as large a volume as I'd like.
Well, I tell you what, I'm really excited to see that when it does come out. So, me and a whole bunch of other people are looking forward to it. And I can go ahead.
Ammonite photos, you know, the harshly weathered. Just I'm blown away by them. I want to be as good as that guy. So yeah, they're really good. But I'll do my best. I'll do my best, John. Please,
Cool.
please buy, buddy. Please buy.
Oh, don't worry. I'll do it. All right. I'm going to go through a few questions for what I'm calling the rapid fire round, and this is just a bit of fun. So comment as you need.
Boxes.
All right. Number one, lacquers or acrylics?
Yes. Lacquers for sometimes like armor and details and figure painting. Acrylics.
All right. Gunpla or Warhammer?
Gosh. Nostalgia feels for Warhammer. I love Warhammer, but that's hard. Yeah, Warhammer. I love Warhammer.
Okay.
It's not very
Marianne
good.
or Ginger?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that one, Jim.
Marianne or Ginger?
Ginger.
Ginger. Oh, really? Okay. Because I'm a Marianne guy, but that's interesting.
It's about me. Stay on target.
You're right. I'm sorry, Sensei. All right.
Hey, it's me today, bro. Come on.
Paintbrush or airbrush?
You know I can't answer that. They're brushes. If anybody can't answer that, it's me. I use and love both.
So it's just yes.
But if I could only have one, so let's go. Handbrush. I can do everything with a handbrush. Yes.
Okay.
So that
All right.
Expect that. Yes.
Roth or Hagar?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the reference.
Oh man. Van
Sorry.
Halen singers, man.
Yes, but it's Japanese OS. So
Van Halen lead singers. David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar?
Oh, okay. Well, I only know one of them, so by default, it's David Lee Roth.
All right, then you win. Okay.
Sorry.
All right, let's see if you know this one. Curly or Shimp?
Ah, Curly.
There we go. All right. OPR or Lopar?
Now you're pronouncing a Lopar.
For anyone who doesn't know, OPR is oil paint rendering, but Lopar is Linc's oil paint advanced rendering.
It's just a joke. It's a joke, guys. I just in a video while I was talking in real time, I just made that up as a gag. No, it's Linc.
Cracked me up. It's 60% better because it has more letters.
Yeah.
All right, Wave or Hasegawa?
Wave or Hasegawa?
Yeah.
Hasegawa took it with the Ammonite. It was Wave up until then for me. Ammonite, yeah, from Ammonite, Hasegawa.
That is a nice kit. All right, Mach 5 or Batmobile?
Ooh, which Batmobile?
You pick.
Gosh, so okay, well, Batmobile because it's got the versions. I mean, especially the tumbler version. The tumbler version. The poor Mach 5.
Yeah, but now the Mach 5, what it does have going for it is when it jumps, it goes jump.
Correct.
So that's, I mean, you gotta give it some points for that. All right, the final in the lightning round. Jar Jar Binks, grilled or fried?
Oh, gosh, George's fan movies are not in my Star Wars. They have been deleted. Just George, no. They no. It goes original trilogy, then Rogue One, then the rest, kind of case by case. But George's fan movies that he made, his unusually high budget fan movies, but dude, sell it to Bob Iger. Come on.
So you wouldn't eat him either way.
Oh gosh.
Grilled or fried.
I don't know. What do you reckon he does have a sort of lobster look, maybe. So but okay, I gotta put this back then. Jar Jar Binks or Chukka? Which one of them would you eat? I'm just thinking, if I had to choose, I'd
Thinking out
probably
loud here.
Jar Jar over Chaka, because I just think Chaka would be cool to have around, especially original version Chaka. Rick Marshall, Chaka. Rick Marshall. Now let's talk about exponential theory. We've established our names, Chaka. I don't know why that came to me. Jar Jar and Chaka. Which one would you eat?
That's good. That's good. Well, we'll just call it a tie. So,
Okay.
and you'll be glad to know you won the lightning round. So you've got that going for you, which is nice.
Compared to who? It's a low baseline, isn't it? Aren't I the first one to do your lightning round?
Yes, you are. This is the very first episode 1, and you're on it.
Default.
That's right. Episode 1. It's like episode 1 for Star Wars. You can be Jar Jar Binks.
Man, I was so excited for those movies,
Yeah.
Man, I'm lining up for hours because it's Japan to get Star Wars is really big there. I'm lining up for half my life.
Yeah.
And then you just go, oh. I mean, they were visually pretty good though. There was some. I mean, at the time, I liked it more than I like to think about it now. That could be something.
I remember when I went to see him, a friend of mine told me, he said, try not to think of them as Star Wars movies, just think of them as high-budget sci-fi movies.
Sure.
And that helped.
Yeah. Oh.
All right, big question. If you could no longer do this gig, what would Lincoln Wright do?
This is my life. This is the way.
Yeah.
Well,
that's like your superpower, your focus, your singleness of focus on what you do and excellence in doing that.
See how quick I answered it too? It just came out. I didn't even really think. It's like, this is the way.
Yeah.
It's not a job.
Yeah.
It's not a job someone gives me. It's something it sounds a little, I don't know if this sounds right, but it's almost something I've earned through various things. But
I get that.
There's a lot of sacrifice has gone into this. It's a question that would have had different answers, maybe even just a couple of years ago, because there was doubt. I especially think there's a friend of mine, Jason Salbento is his family name, but Jason, because I don't use his family name because we've been mates for a really long time. He's a Maschinen Krieger fan, so I've known him. Yeah. Anyway, forever. He's I think when he gave me the pitch, he was one of the top on the software side for Google at YouTube. So when I was trying to think about how to restart my studio, he laid out what YouTube can be for some creators. Because I thought YouTube was what, and gosh, this sounds horrible, but you remember, I'm talking about 10, 11 years ago when YouTube started. It was for the really bad modelers back then.
Yeah.
Remember? It was.
Yeah.
It was the guys who opened boxes and talked about it for a really long time. And, it was very quirky back then, wasn't it? So I still had that image. So I thought I was going to start off with a podcast or something like that because I was listening to a podcast. But, see, that moment was when, if you can't do this, because the Japanese folks that I worked for, and that was back when it was for, said to me, they said, no, we can't do that. I had suggested working remotely for them, continuing to do what I did remotely. Back then, that was not an issue. Their minds were still 1983. That's not when you would do that. Previous sponsors that I'd had for different things in Spain said no. They all said no and laughed.
Wow.
So laughed in a mocking way.
And you said, I'll show you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I got nothing, so I guess, how I've wasted my life. But no, really, they all said no. And they said, you know, and it was universally, it was the same. But you don't live in Japan anymore, so you no longer have value for us.
Yeah.
And which was quite harsh to swallow, because I did not see it that way.
Yeah.
Nor did homelessness. So and I said, you know, I've still got the jazz hands. I'm the same person. I still have the same connections. Just how to make this work. So if you had have asked me then, I may have entertained other concepts, but then even again, maybe no. Jason sat me down, you know, virtually, and talked me through how I should be starting a creative business through my own studio efforts.
Wow.
Again, I had zero experience. I had no knowledge of this.
Yeah.
Work in a studio that someone else made, and they do the publishing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no clue. So that could have been.
And I guess it was. I was just thinking of. I think it was Janis Joplin saying in one of her songs, you know, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And you got to that point where you're like, well, I can do whatever I want because I got nothing really to lose. I got to do something. So I pick what I want and go with it.
Look at, if you guys go back for a laugh, look at the oldest video on my YouTube channel. It's Paint on Plastic. If you search that up, you'll find it. Look at the oldest video. It's Tomer and I standing there in our new little living room on the carpet. She's holding my little iPhone, and we're just one shot. We're doing the Ammo Night box opening kit, because that's what people seem to do on YouTube, is open boxes, talk about them. And being in the studio, I thought, okay, maybe I've got some value to add to people. So it was really a zero start. That's why I'll often get folks who'll come in and give me advice, and it's wonderful that they do. I really appreciate it, but I was not in a position to be able to use any of that advice at the time. Just my base of knowledge was zero. So,
and I will say, as someone who has watched your videos frequently, I still watch them quite frequently. Even the older stuff, the production may not have been great, but the information's there. I mean, the information is just spot on.
Well, thank you.
You know, if I would say to people who are watching this, if you've not heard of Linc and you go look at his stuff, some of that older stuff, the production may not be what he does now, but man, it was still packed with content and just a constant stream of all this stuff in your head coming out. And that's had a great impact on me. So I still watch those.
This is an interesting topic, actually. So now I understand it. Again, it's this last 3 years have been such an educational opportunity. So I really get that, because I've not, what's the right terminology to say that? I've not played the YouTube game very well. So there's a really good video that a friend shared with me by that Maniac dude.
Yeah.
I like his videos. I've only seen like 2 or 3, but I really like them. And it was about the YouTube bubble, and how people who go to YouTube will know the famous YouTube people, whereas they may not know actual professionals in that industry. And so he absolutely nails it. It's very, very good. And he comments about how he used a very good, sorry, it's US terminology that I should be familiar with. I've been speaking US longer than Australian. Not gaming it, but something along those lines. Gaming it, hustle. I think it was some form of hustle that he mentioned. Sorry.
Yeah.
But so I played the YouTube hustle better than many others. And then I looked at his subscriber count. And I was like, boy, that's some hustle. So like 200K subscribers. I'm like, yeah, very good. Good for you. So I understand now. Back then I had no clue, but now I understand the difference between them. Being a YouTuber, being a professional, and various other aspects of tying it together to make it into a business. So those early videos are quite raw like that, I think, because I've got no idea of YouTube hustle. They're just some guy who's suddenly found himself out of a studio
Yeah.
explaining how a studio guy thought about and did these things. So they're kind of a nice time capsule. I haven't gone back and looked. Apparently, the first video interview I did is very interesting. I'm quite different. It was the one with Zach.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's quite different. I don't watch my own content, so I'm busy trying to make the new stuff, right?
Yeah.
So apparently there's been quite a difference, quite a change. So these are things that I need to constantly improve and upgrade.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we could go on for another. We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, and I have every bit of it because it's just flown by. And I feel like if we could get away with it on the YouTubes, I'd just sit here and talk until you said, "Okay, I got to go." But
no,
what's that?
No problem at all. It's real life, and it's probably an interesting insight for people. What I do is relatively unusual, isn't it? As a full-time creative who's monetized his own studio.
You're different in that way, and also just a lot of what I see on YouTube and a lot of what I see professional modelers doing and modelers in general, and my stuff, I know it's this way, it looks about the same in many ways. One of the things that really attracted me to your work and really has helped expand me as a modeler is how different you approach things, how different you look at things, how you can see, I can see your signature in what you do. So you're I know we were joking about it, but I really do feel like you're a big deal.
Can I get the money now before I'm dead?
What's that?
Can I get the money now before I'm dead?
Yeah. I'll put it in an envelope and I'll send it to you. Well, let me ask you this. Let me wrap up this. Just you've got the book coming. Go ahead.
I think this is important for people to hear.
Sure.
I feel I need to get this out.
Go.
I suffer for my work. There's a reason it looks like it does. Now, I know not everybody appreciates or even likes it. That's also fine. I could probably be more commercially successful if I followed more of a rote path and just produced a certain look for things more quickly.
Yeah.
But I suffer for it because they need to be done that way. Model speaks to me in a way. I get this vision for it.
Yeah.
And not with commandments or light or bushes, but just I get a mental image of how it was always supposed to have looked.
Yeah.
Michelangelo would say, now no comparison, but I think it was Michelangelo who sculpted David, said that, was it? It is. Yeah. David was always there. I simply removed the rough pieces.
Yeah.
It's more like that. I see them clearly how I know they want to be. And it's then it's that painful process of bringing it to that. And the more suffrage, the better the result. Yokoyama-san's an art professor. I think we call it adjunct or something like that. But he has that artist approach.
Yeah.
I can't help but pick that up in emulating him. And with that mentor, Deshi, not disciple, that's too strong, like apprentice.
Yeah.
Like having an apprenticeship or something like that. You can't help but
Padawan.
Yeah, Padawan's a pretty good one too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, we've talked about a whole lot of stuff. What's next on the horizon for you when you get done with this book? What's your header on your site says on plastic version 2. Where do you see version 3 going?
So version 3 starts once I can hand off to Fernando. I'm going to start on version 3, which is how Max Watanabe has been advising me to go. But so I'm going to do I don't think it's ever been done for these books before. I want to do a kind of road show, like joking about like the television thing or Will Ferrell. They go on the shows and talk about their things. I want to offer people a series of videos that explain like the themes for each of the models presented, because I'm not sure that will completely come across or have the space to write about that in the book. So explain the why, like as we were just discussing. Not that I've just slapped them together and used certain techniques. No. Each of them has a story and a why, and various inspiration. Why there's so much blue and yellow in the book. There's a bunch of themes like that. And especially when I put them all out on the studio, the photograph area, I could see the themes across them as well as one chunk of work over 3 years. So that's what I'm going to do, a series of them to complement the book and to give the people purchasing it more, additional free content to help them explain what the author / artist was thinking for each. I don't think that's ever been done. You watch, someone will do it tomorrow now and beat me to it. But that's one. So that's going to be for a couple of months, and then I don't want to bring it out at the same time, but I don't want to saturate the market or take Fernando's thunder kind of deal. So I've got a Japan book deal next. But it's good. But it's going to be done in English.
Cool.
Instead of previous titles that I've done with these gentlemen, it was them. I was maybe down here, and then the other guys were down there. This time, well, we're all on par level, so to speak. I mean, of course, Yokoyama-san being involved, he's naturally on top, but it's just a different. It's more of a collaboration between us, and it's in English.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on this interview today. It means a lot to me. You mean a lot to me. You helped me out. You've given me advice. I've watched your work. I've learned from it, and so have so many other people. And if you've not checked out Lincoln's work, he has a YouTube presence. He has a website. He has a Patreon page. All of those I'm going to link down in the description of this video below. So if you want to get in touch with Linc in one of those ways, and I know he would want me to tell you, he would most appreciate the Patreon link.
Don't get in touch. Just watch the stuff and spend money.
Yeah, he doesn't actually want to hear from you. Spend money.
Actually, I respond to all emails. I get quite a few just random contacts from various places. I actually answer everybody.
I remember the first time I saw your stuff, I sent you an email and I was all excited about it. And I'll admit, I asked a bunch of stupid questions, and you were very gracious in your answer.
Emails are the most exciting. They're so into it. I'm always happy. But John, let me thank you. You have been one of my top and longest suffering supporters as well, and especially on Patreon, because you pay more than I know you probably should. So thank you. I don't, for you guys who know and love John's work, please know that he is also one of my top supporters. He probably never mentions that to you either, does he? Because he's so awesome.
Well, I do try to mention your work because I always feel it's important to talk about the people who have helped us. And you have really been a great help to me. So thank you for being on here today, and best of luck with your book and your future endeavors.
All right, thank you very much, John. Thanks, guys.
All right, if you're still here watching at this point, I know that was a little long, but it was worth it, I think. Wasn't that great? I love talking to Linc every time he and I get together, whether it's through his Discord channel, through his Patreon, or in any other way. I just love talking with Linc. He's a lot of fun. There are going to be links in the description below to his website and his Patreon, so please be sure and check him out. And if you do get in contact with him, if this is your first time encountering him and you get in contact with him, do me a favor and just say, hey, I saw you on John's last Tuesday show. That would just be a kind of a nice little plug for me. I'd appreciate it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of the Last Tuesday Show. I hope there's been a few segments that you found fun, maybe informative, educational, and it's going to be this kind of thing that I continue doing. Like I said back before the interview, I plan to do a few more things, the deep thoughts kind of things, the shop talk, showing some of the work, various models that I'm doing. But in this one, I wanted to make sure that I got in that interview because it was just so good. So look for more in upcoming episodes, and it'll change from time to time. I may do one thing one time and another thing another. I just want to keep it fun and let it be something that you can hopefully anticipate each month and make some time to sit down and watch and enjoy. My target is to keep it anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes, so it'll be kind of a longer show, but hopefully it'll be one that, because it only comes once a month, you can kind of work it into your schedule and enjoy it. Now, if you're not already a subscriber, click the link down here, or is it here? I never can remember when I'm sitting facing the anyway. Click the subscribe link that's somewhere down there, and I would be most grateful. There's a little bell icon. If you'll hit that, you'll know when I release new videos. I've also got links down below to the various social media platforms that I'm on, and also to Patreon. If you've not ever encountered Patreon, it's a way that you can support your favorite creators, and I hope maybe I'll move into that group one day. But if you just click on the link and see what's available there, I would be most grateful if you would consider supporting me on Patreon. And for the folks who already support me on Patreon, thank you so much. I'm so very grateful. It is a blessing to me and my family, and we thank you for it. It allows me to do what I do. Otherwise, I'd still build models, but I'd have to cut back on so much, and I don't know that I'd be able to do it at the pace that I do with all of the things that I do. So thank you for allowing me to do this. I am most grateful. Well, be sure and come back on the last Tuesday of next month, which will be September 2020, and take a look and see what I've got going on for that show. And in the meantime, I always like to close with this. In this hobby, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Happy day to you, friends. Bye-bye.